Welcome back at Sports and Spirits. And man, do we have a show for you. Not only do we have NFL and fantasy for NFL, we've got NBA, we've got NHL. There's so much going on. MLB, that's right.
Yeah.
Can't forget those guys.
Yeah.
Don't forget to take a quick second, like and subscribe. Subscribe to this channel because it is on its way to the moon.
Let's do it.
And in this episode, if you came for the spirits of Sports and Spirits, we'll be diving into good old 2025 Shanks from our friends at Michter's. So more on that later, but let's dive right into it.
Yeah, let's do it. So let's start right off on Thursday night. In the NFL, we saw a crazy matchup. You got Joe Flacco versus Aaron Rodgers.
Really quick before we get deep into that.
Yeah.
Is it true that they signed him just days before this?
Yeah, so the way that worked is actually, so he was started the season as Cleveland's quarterback.
Right.
And so he was traded mid-season 2 weeks ago.
That's what it was.
To Cincinnati, so an interdivision trade.
That's crazy.
And it was pretty crazy to see a guy like that. I mean, he balled out.
Look how quickly he picked up their scheme and just...
Yeah, I mean,
wow.
it was crazy to see. I mean, everything was in rhythm. I mean, Chase had one of those crazy offensive games. You had, just a up and down the field, both sides.
Yeah.
I mean, both these teams really show that on offense they're clicking right now.
Kind of the headline for those two is like the veteran QB battle.
Right, 100%. You got two guys that are, in their late stages of their career, 38 and 41 years old.
Yep.
These guys have been around the block and then some, and both Super Bowl champions. So it was a phenomenal game to watch if you tuned in on Thursday night. Bengals did get the win on a late game field goal there, but
just barely.
But it was a great one to watch for sure.
What was the score on that one again?
33-31.
There it is.
Yeah, it was a high scoring affair for sure. And then let's just transition right on to Sunday morning. We saw our third straight London game in a row. The Rams honestly showed that they are just levels above the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, easily.
It was honestly just an offensive performance from the Rams that shorthanded without Puka. They looked like they didn't need him.
Another veteran quarterback too.
Yeah, Matthew Stafford, 5 tutties, 5 touchdowns. It was Devontae Adams scored 3 of them, so a big game in his absence, like we called.
Yep.
But
again, remember that we called that. Okay.
Yeah, we do talk about it a little bit, but it was a 35-7 W, and going into the bye week for both those teams, Rams looking more promising than Jacksonville for sure.
No doubt. And again, goes back to here we are throwing blowout games to London.
Yeah, right. We thought this one was going to be a lot closer.
Yeah, we
sure
did.
as heck didn't seem like it.
No.
You can't predict what happens when it goes over there. You just
Crazy.
can't. All right, well, I guess let's talk a little on the home base side here to start the noon slate. The Vikes hosted the Eagles.
Yeah, we saw this one coming.
We saw this one coming. We kind of had a feeling that the Eagles would get this win, but it was really just a result of inefficiency and an inability to execute when it comes to the Vikings.
Yep.
They had 6 red zone trips. They only scored 1 touchdown, 5 field goals.
Yep.
In today's NFL, it doesn't matter how good your defense is or how good your offense is. If that's your efficiency in the red zone, it's just not enough to get it done.
Yep.
And so ended up losing that game 28-22.
So here's the question.
What's good?
Based on the season that we've had so far,
Right.
are the Vikings better than their record shows, or are they exactly who we think they are?
That's a phenomenal question. I think we don't necessarily know what they are yet. Sure. Because is Carson Wentz the quarterback the rest of the season?
Sure.
Is J.J. McCarthy going to come back healthy at some point and be the quarterback? I mean, we can definitely say that the quarterback play has not been up to par in years past.
Right.
But I do think that the Vikings defense showed that they're maybe not as dominant as they have seemed to be so far to start the year.
It
this
seems
past
like they
week.
have sparks of the defense being a powerhouse defense, and then they go flat.
Yeah, 100%. I think it was just one of those things that, Hurts had over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Right.
For a guy who in his career historically is like, oh, this guy can't throw.
Yeah.
He's not a throwing quarterback. Well, he kind of showed it this week.
Yeah, but it kind of goes back to, no, he's not a throwing quarterback. It's just our defense is not
Which
there
one
to
is
cover.
it?
Exactly.
Which one is it?
Is the defense sucking that much, or
Right.
is he actually a throwing quarterback? Well, the past would say he's probably not a throwing quarterback, and proves that our defense was really sucking.
Yeah, and I agree with you there. I think the defense didn't show up in this game. And speaking of a defense that didn't show up, let's talk Chiefs Raiders.
Ooh, yep. Here's a blowout.
31-0.
That's a skunk.
That's a skunk. you had the return of Rashee Rice. So all you fantasy lovers out there who, drafted him knowing he had a 6-week suspension, he was back this week. God, he looked phenomenal.
Yeah.
He looked like he's ready to go, and they're primed to make a serious run again this year. The Raiders honestly just have no ability to move the ball.
Right.
It's good. Luckily for them, they don't have to play this week.
Yeah.
I believe they're on a bye.
Yeah.
That's really good for them. Because I don't know if they want to play another game.
They're going to need it.
They need an off week. But
what do you think the next move there is for them?
In terms of the Raiders?
Yeah, is it like a rebuild or like...
Well, so we all thought that was going to happen
this last offseason,
but then they, traded for a guy like Geno Smith and, committed to a 3-year contract for a guy that, hasn't proven anything in the NFL. He's had a season or two in Seattle where he's played pretty decent quarterback, but like that guy's not a, franchise guy.
Crazy.
At some point they're going to have to take somebody in the draft. And I mean, I think this is a team where they're going to probably have an ability to tank, being that they just don't have a good roster.
Right.
They're just going to naturally lose games because they're worse.
They're not even going to have to try.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Like we're trying to win, but we're just
maybe guys
losing.
looking at QBs in this next draft class. I feel like because Geno Smith isn't the answer, and we've seen that now, and I think they're starting to realize that.
Yeah. So you think with the Chiefs, are these guys peaking a little too early, or are they just getting warmed up?
Honestly, I don't think it matters. I think Mahomes is playing at an MVP level.
Right.
You have the full arsenal of players back, all healthy. Rashee Rice is honestly going to end up being a top 10 wide receiver the rest of the season.
Yep.
And with Xavier Worthy being the scat back, and you got the trusted Travis Kelce over the middle.
Dang.
I truthfully believe they are probably the team to beat in the AFC.
Formidable force right there.
Yeah, I mean, no argument there. And another shocker in the AFC.
This whole weekend was a big, all over the place, like tight games or blowouts.
The Patriots just honestly keep shocking people. I mean, we expected probably a victory this week against the Titans. We, talked about the favorable matchup there, but Drake May has been putting on a superstar start to the season. I mean,
call that a clinic.
Yeah, it's been phenomenal. He went 21 of 23 for 222 and 2 touchdowns. I think he added another 60 yards on the ground too.
Yep.
He was just all over the place. He's one of those quarterbacks that, I don't think it matters as much. He's very Mahomes-esque in that it doesn't matter who's around him. He seems to make them better.
Yep.
And that's a quality that's really tough to find in the NFL. And having a guy like that on your team really bodes well. So
do you think Drake May has arrived faster than expected?
Yeah, I think we predicted that there was a good chance that we see a lot of execution from him this year in terms of, new system, new coach. Josh McDaniels, a really good offense coordinator.
Oh, sure.
He's been the coordinator for all those years that Tom Brady and the Patriots won all those Super Bowls. He didn't really make it as an NFL head coach, but sometimes we've talked about that in the past as well, that a head coach doesn't always mean that you're a bad coach, just means it's not the right role for you.
Yep.
So him as an offense coordinator, he's got a young quarterback that has all the tools athletically, physically. I mean, he's more athletic and more physically gifted than Tom Brady is by a mile. So if you can just imagine,
he's almost starting a level up.
Yeah, right. I mean, athletically, he's higher. So it just is a matter of can they get everything out of his ability? Because with that defense, with Vrabel, I mean, he's a defensive-minded coach. He's worrying about the defense. You got McDaniels on the offense.
Yep.
This team is as balanced as it gets in the NFL. They could win that division.
The thing there, though, is even with those athletic guys, because we've seen it in other quarterbacks across the league, is you got to watch out for injuries on those guys big time.
100%. We've seen a lot of those guys that are running quarterbacks that have gone down this year, and so it just is tough because, the NFL is a tough game and where you don't necessarily have a backup that's going to step in and be the same caliber of players. So, for them, it's just being, living in that growth mindset of okay, let's continue to grow with this guy, but let's not put him in bad situations for injury.
Yep.
And it's really tough. It's just really tough to do. And I think we'll see what happens over the course of the season either way.
No doubt. Yeah, that offense is clean.
Yes,
it's efficient.
It's very
and they're
efficient.
looking confident.
They are good.
Dang.
All right. Well, let's
Here's the game.
This is the game where everyone's been talking about.
Everybody sit down. Sit down because this is the one.
Yes, this is the one. So
it's been the talker.
Yeah, so this was in the afternoon time slot. So on your end, this was one of the most historic games you've witnessed in most recent history in terms of a comeback.
Yep.
There was 33 points scored by the Denver Broncos in the fourth quarter, and it is the most points scored in NFL history when a team scores no points through the first 3 quarters. So it was an absolute historic comeback. Not only did they score 33 points, but they had to score 2 touchdowns in the last 2 minutes.
Yep.
You know, so I mean, you had a Giants team who took the ball and went right down the field and scored, and then the Broncos with 30 seconds to go had to come back and kick a field goal to win it.
Yep.
It was the craziest game I've ever seen in terms of a team that looked absolutely horrible offensively for the first 3 quarters. I mean, they looked like they couldn't get anything going. A lot of that carryover from that London game in terms of their efficiency against like the Jets.
Yep.
And you saw that carry over into that first half. And honestly, Bo Nix just figured something out in the fourth quarter. The Giants defense isn't that great,
how that
just flipped the switch. It was so awesome.
It's a really good thing they did.
Probably won or lost some buddy fantasy matchups over the course of this past week.
What was the stat on that really quick?
Yeah, so Bo Nix had 5 points going into the fourth quarter in fantasy football.
Yeah.
He ended up with 40. He scored 35 fantasy points.
So for the first part of that game, you're thinking to yourself,
oh my God,
what am I doing with him as my quarterback?
Correct.
And then by the end of the game, I know what I'm doing with him as my quarterback.
Yeah, GM of the week.
No doubt.
Couple.
What's crazy about that, is the Broncos inducted Demaryius Thomas.
They did.
Into the Ring of Fame there that night.
Yes.
Here's something crazy. His number was 33.
Demaryius Thomas?
Yeah.
88.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Not his number wasn't 33. He sadly died at 33.
At 33, yeah. He passed away at 33, yep.
His team's points was 33.
Right.
And they got that in the last 33 seconds of the game.
Correct.
That's crazy.
Yeah, very.
Talk about an awesome omen for that night to be getting the points 33 in the last 33
100%.
seconds of the game for the guy who sadly passed at 33.
Yeah.
Incredible player too.
Yeah, one of their best receivers that's ever played there. So I mean, I did not know that, but that was a really cool one.
Yeah.
So the afternoon slot was the best slot of the week.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw the Colts improve to 6-1.
Let's go.
And just take down a shorthanded Chargers team on the road. I mean, Chargers are struggling to run the ball. They're having issues in regards to just moving the ball that way. So Justin Herbert throws for 400 yards and a couple tutties in the loss. But
just think, you can hit the golf ball that far in one hit.
I mean, on a pretty deep roll. I mean, wind helping maybe, but
the wind at your back,
wind at your back,
roll.
yeah. But yeah, watch out, the Colts, man. We've been talking about them for the last couple weeks. They're legit. They proved it this week. They play the Titans this coming week. I mean, they're a legit contender, definitely to win that division. Yeah. I think they're hands down the best team in that division, and it is not close. But they are a legit contender come playoff time. You know,
you think they're super underrated right now?
I would say they're extremely underrated. Yeah. I mean, I think you're looking at a team who's 6-1, and all they've done is beat the teams in front of them. You know, and when it comes to things you can control, that's all you can control.
Right, exactly.
You know, and so they've had a couple games that were close that went their way instead of the other teams. So that's something to watch out for as they play tougher teams throughout the rest of the way. But, you know, with that division, you got 6 games that are very easily doable.
Right.
You know, so they could have a really good record, very good chance to be the number 1 seed in the AFC this year. Crazy.
See that
Daniel Jones, baby. Daniel Jones.
Let's go, brother.
Yeah. And then we saw the Cowboys take on the Commanders at home. This was slated as the game of the week going into it, but without their top 3 receivers for the Commanders, it turned out to be one of those that wasn't necessarily the best to watch.
Nope.
And you had Jaden Daniels go down in the third quarter with a hamstring injury.
Hammies.
Those are tough. Those are tough.
They're the worst.
So the Cowboys beat them up pretty good, 44-22. One to watch out for, Jaden Daniels' injury, and just keep an eye on that. That's going to be one to talk about for the next couple weeks. But also that Cowboys offense. They proved with CD Lamb back.
Yep.
You know, 22 points out of the guy in the first half. That team is special. That offensive weaponry that he's got around him, they are all going to be a legit, you know, fantasy starters for you on an every given week basis.
Right.
So
that's the question there then. Is this really a statement win for Dallas, or is it they should have won because the other team was down so many players, and you've also got one of your big boys back?
I would say it's not a statement win.
Right.
I would say it's an expected, better rostered victory.
Right. Like if you wouldn't have won this game, you got problems.
100%. I mean, you're looking at a team that's shorthand without their 3 best weapons in the wide receiver game, and they're not to mention they lost Austin Eckler.
Yep.
You know, for the season at running back. So you're talking about a team that's lost 4 of their starters start the year. So we'll have to monitor the Cowboys. They're always talked about. They're always in the limelight, as
they're
America's team.
America's team.
So we'll cover quite a bit more of them as the season rolls on. They got a pretty tough matchup this next week against Denver, so we'll chat about that. But we'll see. That'll be a real test. But let's get into Sunday night.
Let's get into these good Sunday night game.
Yeah, so, I mean, we saw the 49ers host the Atlanta Falcons team that going in, the Falcons kind of shocked some people this past Monday night, beating down on the Bills. And it honestly turned out to be kind of more of a defensive battle / field goal battle, very low scoring, as most of these games do.
Yep.
The 49ers are very good in these. They tend to win a lot of them. They ended up getting the win 20-10. Big night from Christian McCaffrey. He really cemented himself as one of those elite,
unstoppable.
Yeah, just one of those guys that we keep saying the injury history, and he's healthy right now, and right now they're just riding him to this, and they're hoping that that's going to be enough. And once some of these receivers get back healthy for them, watch out.
Right.
So, let's get into a little bit of that Monday slate just to round off the week.
Monday Night Football.
Yeah, going into this one, we kind of had this preconceived
this
notion on the early game.
This one's almost on the fence of a blowout.
Yeah, it was close. It felt like it. It
Right,
felt like
right.
it.
Exactly.
The feeling of the game itself felt
a
like
blowout.
it. Yeah, the Lions hosted the Bucks in a matchup of two probably playoff teams potentially at the end of the year, but we'll see. But the Lions won 24-9. Basically, it came down to, it was a game of healthy offense for Detroit, dealing out a banged up offense for the Bucks. And we kind of went into the week saying, okay, what's going to be the defining factor in this game? And it just really ended up being Jahmyr Gibbs is him. He's really good.
Yeah.
And
so is he like? Is he now the RB1?
I don't know. We'll kind of talk about that as we get into the fantasy season. Some forecasting for the end of the year, but
that's crazy.
Man, did he show he's good. But
all right, so here it is. Who's the real NFC powerhouse right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's tough to bet against some of these teams, but I really like the Rams.
Wow.
I really like the Rams. I do think that they might be the most balanced team.
Sure.
With the injuries that you've seen on the 49ers side, there's just some question marks on defense. What are they going to be able to stop some of these elite teams come playoff time?
Yep.
And then the Eagles have looked really suspect. They
that's true.
They are the defending champs, so until you're beaten, but
like going into this weekend with the Vikings.
Right.
And that's an obvious win for them.
They should be.
They're a powerhouse. So this
they
weekend,
shouldn't have.
Exactly.
They shouldn't have win.
So this weekend wasn't really like, oh wow, the Eagles, they look really good. It's like you better have looked good here.
Yeah.
So
when the Vikes were it.
I agree with that.
Yeah, 100%. So, but the Lions are always going to be in that discussion. Dan Campbell being as aggressive as he is. He's one of the few teams that just goes for it on fourth down, that gives your offense the confidence and belief from your coach that we can do it.
Yep.
And that offense. Yeah, Niners. Yeah, I just, like I said, it's that defense is questionable.
Sure.
I just
not a balanced team.
Those are those three teams I do like: 49ers, the Lions, and the Rams. But it's going to come down to the end of the year, and we'll see who's the healthiest, because that's usually what deters who's the victor.
Right.
You lose a big guy, it really changes things. So.
Dang.
And then your late time slot, we had that doubleheader Monday night.
That's right.
Yeah, you had the Seahawks host the Texans. Yeah, the Sea Chickens. A lot of great young talent on the field tonight in that game, but really JSN shined through once again. He is a special receiver. His connection with Darnold is fantastic. And they picked up a big 27-19 win.
Let's go,
heading
boys.
into the bye, but it really was more lopsided than that. It was felt like the Seahawks should have won by a lot more. And the Texans even had 3 turnovers in that game and lost.
Wow.
So a team to win the turnover battle like that, to lose doesn't happen very often.
No.
So we'll see what happens. Nico Collins did go down, it sounds like, with a concussion, as well as Mike Evans broke his collarbone on the Monday night as well.
Ouch.
So unfortunately, we're going to be without some of the best receivers in the NFL for at least a week or two, and then Evans potentially the rest of the year.
Dang.
So yeah, that kind of rounded out our Monday slot, and yeah.
There you freaking have it. Now we're about to get into some fantasy stuff.
Yeah.
But before we do, we're going to hit up this incredible whiskey we have in front of us.
Let's do it.
Shanks, the 2025 release from our friends at Michter's.
Yeah.
Now this bad boy is a once a year release, right around fall, just before fall, towards the end of summer, basically.
Yep, end of summer, or right around bourbon month.
Yep. And then this is a sour mash whiskey.
Okay.
And now, for anybody that doesn't know what a sour mash whiskey is, it is a process in creating the whiskey
Yep.
where some of the old mash is recycled back to the front into the cook section, it's called. And this is where the ground corn and water come together and they start to what's called the cook process. They heat the corn and mash up to 180 degrees. I only know this because I used to make the stuff. 180 degrees, and that helps to soften and break down a lot of the sugars in there. And what they do then is, obviously, they've added all of the grain. So the barley is, what's the word again? Malted.
Yep.
What malting is where it just barely starts to sprout the seed.
Correct.
And in that, a certain enzyme is made.
Right.
And with that enzyme, that's what starts to break down all the simple sugars into something that the yeast can actually eat and create alcohol.
Correct.
And so what we're doing is recycling some of that old mash back into the front. So that's what they call sour mash. Sweet mash is where it's all just brand new mash being made in the front.
Sure.
And so it gives it a different flavor, it gives it a different profile, all those different types of things.
And that's why there tends to be a difference of palate from year to year.
Yep.
Because the mash bill changes with
Exactly.
the different combinations.
Yep. So super cool.
Yeah.
Now, in industrial grade alcohol, you don't have to use a malted barley. You can use
Correct.
different types of enzymes that you can just truck in and pump it in there, whatever. But in order to make it food grade and drinkable, you have to use all those products.
Gotcha. What do we got on the proof point on that one?
This one's only a 92?
Yeah. And I would say it actually almost drinks a touch bit hotter than the proof point.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you there.
Yeah, I
It's
think.
got a little more spice on it. 91.2.
Okay.
Yeah. But everything I got on the nose for like the caramels,
Yep.
this one's kind of your quintessential whiskey. Like,
In terms of the profile and
Yep.
notes that you're getting, yeah, you're caramely, rich, butterscotchy,
Yep.
like, just
exactly.
right on the nose. And then it's
You
kind
get
of
powdered sugar.
yeah, almost a little powdered sugar.
But then you got on a lot of that transfers to the palate, but now you're getting some of that oak and that baking spice and something that's kicking it up that to
Yeah.
make it feel proofier than it actually is.
Yeah, this is for sure got more of that heat profile to it than you'd expect out of a 90 proof whiskey.
Yeah.
This has got that nice baking spice note to it in the
I love
mid-palate.
that so much.
Yeah, it kind of lingers there on your tongue at the finish,
Yep.
the top of the tongue.
It does have, again, speaking to the proof, it does have a more of a finish and more of a bit of a hug than I would have thought out of a 91.
100%. Yeah.
Like-
so it's way more.
You can expect a hug like this out of something that's 100 proof, 105, maybe 107, something like that. But this at 91, I wasn't expecting there to be anything really.
Yeah. There's definitely more complexity than I expected for sure.
Mouth feels thinnish to medium.
Yeah.
Nothing
Yeah, it's
super
not.
crazy.
It doesn't coat the whole palate for sure.
Which you would again expect at 91. They've
Yep.
watered her down.
Right.
That's a good one. Again, this is a yearly limited release coming out generally right at the end of the summer, right before Bourbon Heritage Month, which is September.
Yep.
They're always fun to get my hands on them just because it's always interesting to see how the profile just changes a little bit here and
Yeah,
there.
and year to year, the different batches have higher reviews than others.
Yep.
So
So this is a
always
good one.
Oh, yeah.
Might want to check it out if you get the chance.
Yeah.
Now to fantasy football.
Let's do it.
Take us there.
Let's talk a little fantasy football. So let's just kind of, recap some of the stuff that we saw this past week. Joe Flacco looked amazing, throwing for 340 and 3 touchdowns.
Come on.
With Jamar Chase having 23 targets in the game, securing 16 receptions for 161 and a touchdown. Let's lock him in back where he belongs as a top 5 wide receiver the rest of the way. Joe Flacco's going to feed him targets, and we saw it.
40 years old.
I know. It is crazy. I mean, he had a battle of a couple 40-year-olds. It was just just astounding. But yeah, he
I can't imagine playing like that as old as I am.
yeah, well, and I think it stems from the fact that these guys have been doing this their whole life.
Right.
Some people have worked in a cubicle in an office or whatever.
Yep.
These guys have been playing football since they were 4 years old, and they've seen
You're right.
defenses. They can read them better than anybody you can imagine.
You don't want Joe Flacco coming in at 40 to do your taxes, but if you need him as a QB,
Yeah.
he's your guy.
Correct. But let's lock those guys in. That was the highlights of that. And then, yeah, we talked about it earlier, the Bo Nix crazy game.
Gosh.
It was one of the most insane fourth quarters in fantasy history, scoring over 40 points in total, 35 in that quarter. It was just honestly crazy to watch. A couple rushing touchdowns. Obviously, let's temper expectations on that regarding his future on that. He's not going to be a 40-point guy every week.
Listen, if this was what he did every week, then sure. But
yeah. But he does play Dallas.
That's true.
That this next coming week, so that is something to keep an eye out for.
But this weekend in that game was historic for a reason.
Correct.
It doesn't always happen.
Correct. Yeah. So let's keep that in mind. But then, speaking of quarterbacks, Justin Herbert and the Chargers receivers will be huge. Will be huge for fantasy going forward. Without a running game, they're going to need to score a ton of points. In order to do that, they're going to have to do it through the air. So, I mean, Justin Herbert, I believe, is a top 10 QB the rest of the season. You got guys like Ladd McConkey, Keenan Allen, and Quentin Johnson all going to be in there. Keep an eye out for that rookie tight end, though.
Right?
Yeah, he looked really good for the Chargers. So kind of more of his safety valve guy, like fourth option. He's just wide open on a lot of plays. I had over 100 receiving yards this week, and a touchdown. So he's going to be a guy in fantasy for streaming with tight ends on buys. He might be a solid streamer.
Hot dang.
But they do play this coming week on Thursday, so that'll be something you'll have to decide earlier than later.
Here we go.
Here we go. Let's talk running backs.
Man.
We kind of hinted at it, but these are my opinion, the top 3 running backs the rest of the season. I got in no particular order. I got CMC, Christian McCaffrey.
Let's go.
Got Jonathan Taylor and Bijan Robinson.
Wow.
The only reason I have these 3 ahead of the rest, Jahmyr Gibbs is right there behind him. So is Josh Jacobs. It really just boils down to these guys have such insane dominance of volume in the backfield.
I don't have any of these guys.
You don't have any of these guys. And if I'm being honest, I only have one of them as well. So,
Dang it.
It's one of those that with their efficiency in terms of running the ball, but also their just sheer volume, especially in the passing game on McCaffrey and Bijan. It's going to be one of those where these guys are going to be on, establish themselves as being a class above the rest.
They're on a tier of their own.
They are, and so it'll be fun to see how that transpires at the end of the year. Let's hope all these guys stay healthy. I mean, never want to wish injuries on anybody, but let's see what happens. And then, like we talked about, Jahmyr Gibbs took control on Monday night. Yeah, he showed that he is the superior back in that backfield, and that this whole rumor of a more balanced split between him and David Montgomery.
Sure.
They said, I don't think so.
We're actually good here.
Yeah, we're good here. We saw him bust off like a 78-yard touchdown run where he, I believe, hit a top speed of over 22 miles per hour on it.
Balls.
He is so fast. He's tough to tackle in space. I believe he had another 82 receiving yards. Ended up costing me my fantasy matchup. I had a 55-point lead going into Monday night, and the guy I was playing, I believe, had Jahmyr Gibbs, Dalton Schultz, who had his best game of his career.
Oh, my gosh.
And the Seattle kicker to lose by 12.
What a horrible night for him to be firing.
Yeah, no kidding. So, but either way, let's lock him in going forward. He is dominating that backfield.
Who's the MVP of the week?
Who is the MVP of the week?
Who's the most valuable fantasy player of the week? Would you put it at someone like Bo Nix, who went from I only got 7 points and all the way up to 40? Or, because again, that could just be lightning in a bottle.
Right.
Like, yeah, he's the MVP of the week, maybe.
Okay.
But
so the question you're saying is, okay, so let's break this down even further.
Yep.
So we're just got through week 7.
Yep.
So for most people, for fantasy, they play 14-week regular seasons.
Right.
So this is what we would call the mid-season point.
Yep.
So we're at the halfway point, and who are we saying is probably the fantasy MVP through 7 weeks? My answer is simply Jonathan Taylor.
There we go.
It just really boils down to these other guys are all elite players, and they were all picked as elite players.
Yep.
Jahmyr Gibbs, Christian McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson,
Sure.
they were all RB1s picked in the first round in all your fantasy drafts. Jonathan Taylor was slept on in a lot of drafts.
Yep.
And a couple of drafts I was in, he fell, he was a mid-second all the way into like the 3rd, 4th round. The guy that, they're like, what are the Colts going to be this year?
Right.
What are they going to be with Daniel Jones? Well, if you bought in on him wherever you took him, you're reaping the rewards of it. Of
course.
And so I think that when it comes to MVP for me, he's not only the most valuable player to that team, but he's the most valuable player to your roster because you also probably have other good people around him.
Yep.
So like
because everybody slept on him and you got him later in the draft. Yeah.
What
good point.
Shoot it out to us in the comments if you are a guy that's got Jonathan Taylor and maybe one of these other three.
Right.
Jameer Gibbs, Bijan, Christian McCaffrey. Let us know, because I'd love to see a lineup that's got both those, because you got yourself a great chance to go a long way if you got them both in your lineup. So I think that's my answer to that. But Bo Nix for the week, I'll give it to him just because you didn't expect it.
Right.
He was the most, I guess, was the most shocking result.
Yeah. Maybe not the most valuable, but the most shocking.
But the most shocking for sure.
So who's a player that you may be selling high on right now?
Oof, this is a really tough question, because in terms of fantasy football, it's all timing.
Yep.
I think a guy that has an option to still have a sell high value is maybe a guy like George Pickens.
Sure.
I think that as much as I think that offense is really phenomenal, you got to expect with CD back that, as we saw in that game, he's going to get a ton of targets too.
Yeah.
If you could potentially swap a George Pickens for an elite wide receiver one on his respective offense, I would consider it, just because there's going to be a lot of mouths to feed in Dallas in terms of volume. That's one of them. Guys like, I don't know. You got guys like, you could break it down in terms of like an elite running back with one big game.
Yep.
You take a guy like DeAndre Swift. He's hot as can be. He's got a very easy schedule for the next month.
Yep.
But if you could flip him for one of those four in a package of like Swift and a flex wide receiver for one of those Bijan, Taylors, or McCaffreys, I'd consider it, because a team might be like, Swift has looked really good, but he also seen a lot of volume from his backup running back as well, so that eats into his touches.
Truth.
So if you can look at that and establish yourself maybe a bell cow guy,
Yep.
I think that might be the way to go. Also, I think a buy low guy would be Ashton Genty.
Yep.
I think he's got a lot of potential with the Raiders in terms of out of their bye, they established the run more, because they seem to obviously can't get it done through the air.
Yeah.
So finding a way to get him more usage, that would be something to look out for. So that'd be a buy low guy for sure.
Ooh, there you go.
So
a little bit of deep insight right there. From our boy with the great fantasy mind.
There you go.
Don't
Hopefully
act
it helps.
don't act like you're not impressed. But let's transition into the feeder teams.
Yeah, let's talk a little college football. We'll try to make this a little bit, of a quicker segment today. But
I'm a little bit bummed that you're not starting with Alabama, but that's fine. We can go with Louisville.
We will. Well, it was the biggest upset of the week. We saw it on Friday night. We saw Louisville go on the road against the number 2 ranked Miami team in an absolute shocker. I actually myself did bet on Louisville, so I did see them, take the win. I saw it coming. Carson Beck has shown that in big moments, sometimes he's cracked under pressure.
Yep.
In which he did in this game, throwing for 4 interceptions. Looks like he, in my opinion, is not going to be a good NFL quarterback.
Oof.
I don't see the ability to grow his game. We know what his game is. I don't think he's got an ability to take it to the next level.
Yep.
And we saw it in this game that he wasn't the best player on the field, and that's why they lost.
So did Louisville just end Miami's playoff hopes?
That's a great question. When it comes to this year's college football, I think we're going to see, if anything, at most maybe 1 or 2 teams that remain undefeated.
Sure.
So as with a 1-loss team, being that the game ended up being only a field goal result, there's still an opportunity for Miami to, potentially sneak in there, being that Louisville, in my opinion, is a very slept-on team. They're a very good team. They got Miller Moss. He's a good quarterback. You got Bell, the receiver, who's going to be a NFL wide receiver.
Yep.
So they got some good players. I think they could sneak in. I don't see them as a top 5 team as they once were considered. But if they win out, there's a good chance with 1 loss, being a team that potentially wins their conference,
right.
sneaks in,
yeah.
Because that holds a lot of value. So.
All right, now, before we go crazy on this next one,
okay,
we're gonna start with a question.
Okay,
this is the 4th straight ranked win, right?
Correct.
This season, is Alabama back to being the most feared team in college football?
That's a great question. I do think that
Roll Tide is a feared phrase.
100%. You see those guys coming and you're afraid.
Right.
I think the only team on paper that I see as being any kind of a threat to this team this year is Ohio State.
Sure.
And it's honestly just for the fact that they're a well-coached team. They were there last year. They did it all.
Yep.
The difference, in my opinion, is I think the quarterback play on Bama's side is better.
Gotcha.
So when it comes to the playoff time, that tends to be the defining factor in which team goes the longest. And I think Alabama's got 3 receivers that'll play in the NFL.
Oh, yeah.
Which historically, they've had a lot of guys playing at the receiver position in the NFL. So, the question will be for the Tide is, will their defense be able to hold up against those big marquee matchup teams?
Right.
Because like a Jeremiah Smith for Ohio State's going to be a really tough one, but those are my 1A, 1B. And then that's my unbiased opinion. My biased opinion is that they probably are the best team in the country.
They're steamroll.
They're going to steamroll, but I think they are a team that is just going to continue to climb the ranks. And as we said, with those teams that are undefeated now that won't be at the end of the year, Bama has a chance if they can win out the rest of their schedule. They'll be the 2 seed, I believe, in the playoff.
Because at the beginning of the season, they were kind of 50-50.
Well, they didn't know what they were going to be.
Right.
And then they saw them play Florida State, and Florida State just shocked them. Bama's defense looked awful. They couldn't stop the run. That's their concern, is stopping the run. Ohio State's not good running the ball. So that's why I think they match up really well against Ohio State. And so these things are all factors when it comes to the end of the season. So
exciting.
But they saw them take a legit victory over 37-20 over Tennessee. It's going to be one of those that the Tide are here and they're going to be talked about for weeks to come.
Watch out, baby. But
on the home front here
we go.
You had
finally
25th ranked Nebraska get stunned by the Gophers. The Gophers. They sacked
the who?
9 times in a 24-6 victory over Nebraska.
That's crazy.
It was just awesome to see. People have always talked about in the PJ Fleck era that he can't win the big game. He got one.
Yep.
He got one. Can he do it on numerous occasions? Because
we'll see.
The Gophers could sneak into being a ranked team at the end of the year. As if they can stack some wins, because the Big Ten's a tough conference.
It is.
So if you can get a couple going, but we'll see. That was a great game, big win for them. You had a couple other ranked matchups. You saw 17th ranked Vandy hold off against LSU. 10th ranked LSU even. So, they were favored at home.
Shout out Livy Dunn.
LSU just can't win those big games. That's what we've kind of talked about in the past, and that's the reason why I think that their coach is not necessarily going to be there for very much longer either. Yeah, so we'll see what happens there.
Inside scoop.
But 31-24 was the victory there for Vandy. And then we saw a 12th ranked Georgia Tech. We're going to keep talking about them. You're undefeated. We're going to talk about you.
That's right.
They were actually underdogs as an undefeated team against Duke. And,
crazy.
And they won 27-18. I think we have to buy in. I believe they got moved up to 7th.
Let's go.
In the rankings. They're a playoff team if they win out. It's a really tough schedule they got. I think it's one of those. We'll see what happens. But that Hasten King, he's a really good quarterback.
Yep.
And so we'll see what happens. But and what we talked about last week on the pod, so tune in back to it. But we saw 9th ranked Georgia battle against 5th ranked Ole Miss, and what we said would be the game of the week, and it did not disappoint.
It was the game of the week.
It was the game of the week. We saw a 43-35 victory by Georgia, and it really came down to Georgia scoring, I believe, 17 points in the fourth quarter.
Another one of those big fourth quarter
comebacks. Yeah, Ole Miss looked. All things were firing on offense. It was boom, 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 like 5-6 drives in a row. Then all of a sudden, pressure started getting to the quarterback. Some bad calls going not in their way, and it's just Georgia's been there, done that, and it showed at the end, and so
wore out their defense, came right back.
Yeah, and then we got an undefeated team go down.
What?
So we saw 7th ranked Texas Tech.
Oh my gosh,
get beat, and I quote, by Arizona State, the Sun Devils.
Are you kidding me right now?
Got a few people watching that, are little Sun Devil fans.
Are they salty right now?
A little salty.
Yeah.
But, Arizona State got it done. They sat their quarterback last week in preparation for this matchup, and so that resulted in a pretty big upset there. So congrats to them. It was well earned. And the one that we talked about is to see who's the prove-it team was number 13th ranked Notre Dame.
Yep.
Holds forward at home against 20th ranked USC. Just one of those, they just show they're a little bit better team, better roster. And you had another game where you had over 260 all-purpose yards from the running back, Jeremiah Love.
There we go.
NFL-ready talent. That's all I got to say about him. He's going to be the reason why they make the playoff again.
You don't even need to say anything else about him.
Yeah.
NFL ready. Says it all.
That's it. That says it all. So, yeah.
Boom.
That's college
football. That's the feeder teams, baby. If you, you just heard it right there. NFL ready players you're going to see heading up to the next rank. This is why we call it the feeder team. These guys prepping for the NFL. Yeah. Let's talk about the MLB.
Let's talk about baseball. Yeah, so Everybody watching at home, we saw the conclusion of both the ALCS and the NLCS series.
Any shockers?
Yeah. I mean, I think we didn't expect the AL matchup to be as tight as it was. You had some high-powered offensive showings by both teams. You saw that Blue Jays, kind of evened up the series going into the weekend at 2-2 going into Friday night. And then you saw 2 home runs from Eugenio Suarez for the Mariners to, give them a 3-2 lead. So you're balanced there. You're like 3-2 lead going back to Toronto. Toronto never lost faith. They really believed that if they could get back to Game 6 and have a chance in Game 7. And so, yeah, they pretty much outdueled them in Game 6. So they just kind of looked like the better team. And then in Game 7, we saw a crazy comeback. Mariners up 3-1 in the 7th inning. I actually was like, you know what? Let's throw some stuff down on the Blue Jays right here, right before it happened. They had a pitching change. Boom. George Springer, 3-run bomb, gave them the 4-3 lead, and that was just enough for them to win that game, taking them to the World Series.
Don't act like you're not impressed.
Yeah, and that is, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the first time in 32 years, if I'm not mistaken, that they made it to the World Series. So pretty long time coming for them.
That's a long one.
But
let us know in the comments if we're wrong.
Yeah, let us know.
Torch us. We dare you.
Yeah, but in the NL, we saw what we expected.
Yep.
The Dodgers just absolutely dismantled the Brewers in 4.
Team, baby. America's team.
From Game 1 to the historic performance in Game 4. As a baseball fanatic, I can't not talk about this game. So in Game 4, Shohei Ohtani, not only was it, I believe, the greatest single game performance in MLB history, but with an opportunity to go to the World Series on the line.
Right.
To do it in a game that meant so much. He pitched 6 innings, 10 strikeouts, giving up only 2 hits, gives up no runs, while also adding 3 home runs from the plate, with the second home run literally exiting the stadium.
Shoot.
He hit it out of the stadium.
Literally.
The only word to describe this performance is legendary. That's it. That's the only way to describe it. You're never going to see it again. In my opinion, it was honestly historic.
Much like Napoleon Dynamite's uncle throwing a football over the mountains, he knocked this ball literally out of the park.
Literally. It was just insane. It was an awful pitch. It was down and in, not even a pitch you want to swing at.
Right.
And he nuked it. It was just awesome.
Don't mess with the big leaguers.
Yeah, Ohtani is special, and he showed it in that one. This sets up your World Series, and we'll kind of talk about that in our forecast video, but you got the Dodgers taking on the Blue Jays. So stay tuned for that.
Yep. Watch out, baby. World Series. But it's getting cold out.
Yeah, let's talk a little hockey.
Let's get on the ice. Let's get on the sheet.
Yeah, so for us based in Minnesota, big Wild fans here. So
Huge.
So yeah, unfortunately, we had a 3-game road stand. We started off a little cold, losing on Friday to the Capitals.
No pun intended.
No pun intended, exactly. Yeah, we lost 5-1 to the Capitals on Friday, and then we lost a tight one.
Absolutely atrocious.
Oh, yeah, it was bad. They outshot us. It was like 4-1 almost.
Oh, my
Great game out of our
gosh.
10 to even keep it close.
Right, exactly.
It was just a really bad game. We played a lot closer game on Saturday, unfortunately losing in overtime to the Flyers.
Yep.
But it showed that, we had some fight coming back after the dismantle that was the game on Friday. And then we closed up the homestand on our end in New York, Madison Square Garden, against the Rangers. And we did win 3-1. So,
won.
1-2.
Finally.
Yeah, 1-2 on the homestand, or on the road trip, excuse me. And so sometimes when it comes to hockey, you're going to have these up and down weeks. And
That's the thing. It's like there's 47 games in a week, so not literally. Okay.
Yeah, anywhere from like 2 up to 4 or
Exactly.
5, so got to be able to bounce back.
Yep.
So yeah, kind of what we've noticed so far through the first a week plus here of the hockey season, you still have seen a couple undefeated teams. You've seen Carolina Hurricanes, you have the Colorado Avalanche, and you have the Las Vegas Golden Knights. They start hot. Although it's a long season, these are 3 teams that are serious contenders.
Right.
I feel like, we talk about these teams pretty often, throw in the Dallas Stars in there too.
Yep.
these are teams that we'll be talking about and probably have more coverage of their matchups as, the season progresses, just because they're the teams to talk about as being contenders. But, we'll see as the NHL rolls up here of these things change.
There you have it. Let's hit the hoops.
Yeah, and lastly, let's talk about some NBA. So we saw the end of the preseason this past weekend. So, you got to see some of your guys play their last couple games. The NBA season is officially here.
It's on us.
If you're watching this video, it means that tonight is opening night.
Get ready.
If you're watching the video. You got the Thunder taking on the Rockets at 6, and then you got the Lakers hosting the Warriors in the nightcap. 4 great teams playing tonight. Some great storylines. KD making his first, start for the Rockets after he just this past week signed a 2-year, $90 million extension. Slight discount, as much as you want to believe, that actually is a discount. So that ties him with the team for the next 3 years. I believe he's making like $55 million this year.
I wish I could make $55 million.
Yeah, it must be tough. And he's in, as you know anything about Texas, the state tax component. Right. So he's making quite a good chunk of that.
Minimal state taxes.
Yes. So we'll see, but that'll be an interesting storyline to watch out for. J-Dub is banged up for the Thunder, so he's probably not going to play this tonight, but we'll see what happens. But it'll be a good one. For you fellow NBA fans out there, season 2 of Starting 5 just dropped on Netflix. It's basically what they do is they have the behind the scenes of where they follow some of the league's biggest stars over the course of the previous season. So if you're a big fan, they followed SGA, Tyrese Haliburton, Jaylen Brown, Kevin Durant, and James Harden. So if you're an NBA fan, I think it's a must watch. Those are great storylines. Obviously, we saw SGA and the Thunder take on Tyrese Haliburton and the Pacers in the finals.
Yep.
So it was great timing for that. And we had some unfortunate things happen with Tyrese, tearing his Achilles. So we got to see that whole process. But, hopefully he's back soon healthy. But it was an awesome watch. So tune into that if you got yourself some free time.
There you go. There you have it. Another weekend in the books.
Yeah, it's another weekend in sports. It's we're just kind of ramping up really on the winter stuff.
Yep.
We'll see more as we progress. We'll have more coverage with regards to game action and the Timberwolves season around the corner. Fellow basketball fans got to love that, and it's been good.
Yep. Historic week in NFL in some ways, and then fantasy wrap up. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you find yourself a little chilly in this fall weather, grab yourself a little Shanks Sour Mash Whiskey. Watch a couple games, especially tonight.
Yeah.
With the NBA firing up.
Let's do it.
See you guys in the next one. Peace.